You're listening to Workplace Perspective, an employment law podcast raising the bar at workplaces everywhere. Workplace Perspective is a regular podcast series for employers and employees focusing on education, training, and the law to help organizations of all sizes develop and maintain successful workplace relationships. The opinions expressed by guests on Workplace Perspective are their own and should not be considered legal advice. And now, here's your host, Teresa McQueen.
Thank you, James, and welcome everyone to Workplace Perspective, where we are striving to raise the bar at workplaces everywhere. We're talking today with author, speaker, and executive coach, Reiner Lomb. Reiner is the founder of BoomerangCoach, which is an executive coaching firm that helps leaders around the world create a more positive workplace future. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the essential emotions for leading positive workplace change. It's going to be a great show. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Workplace Perspective has a new website. Visit us at www.workplaceperspective.com. Check out our new look, including our featured guests and archive sections. Share us with your friends and colleagues to help us continue to raise the bar at workplaces everywhere.
Welcome back to our listeners and welcome to Workplace Perspective, Reiner Lomb. Before we get started, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Hi, Teresa. So it's a pleasure to be on your show. I'm an executive coach. I focus on leadership development. There's a focus on innovation and transformational change. I have a background in both being entrepreneur and entrepreneur, meaning starting businesses within large corporations and growing them globally, as well as an entrepreneur. For the last 15 years, I have been focused on developing leaders, and I truly enjoy that.
Great. Well, it's always a good thing. Leadership changes as the society changes, as generations come and go. I think it's really important to focus on the things that you're talking about, which is the emotional aspects of being a leader and affecting positive change, which are stuff that just we love talking about on this show. And I think that oftentimes, the soft skills are the things that often get left behind when we talk about hard driving workplaces and truly effective leaders. Those sort of soft skills, the emotional intelligence part of it tends to kind of hide in the background and isn't as in the fore, I think, as it should be. But from your perspective, I want to know, share with our listeners why you think it's so important. Why is emotional intelligence so important in a leader who wants to affect positive change?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And because many people don't think about it, they just take it for granted. Conventional wisdom tells us emotions have no place in business or leadership for many decades, basically. Now, I have been a leader in managing teams across the world, different cultures and so on. And I can say the things that I achieved in my life, I achieved through people, influencing people, motivating people, inspiring people, coordinating effective actions, and so on. And our success and the success of any business leader, of any leader inside a business or outside a business, is determined by the behavior of the leader and by the behavior of the people that the leader is leading, right? Is trying to mobilize, to influence and coordinate actions with. And, but our behaviors, one of the most powerful drivers of our behaviors are emotions. Now, they are not visible. For many people, they don't, like, we're always in an emotional state, and it's typically a mixture of emotions, but very often we are not aware of it. We behave and act, but we are not aware of what is driving that behavior. What is the emotion or the mix of emotion that is driving that behavior? So in my work, basically, I discovered emotions many years ago as a powerful tool, as a powerful skill set to both learn myself, but also in coaching leaders in order for them to change their behaviors. So there's three basic ideas. First of all, that any of your listeners can create positive change no matter where they are. If they're an entrepreneur in a large corporation, if they are in society and want to create change, anybody can create positive change. But in order to create change, you have to change behavior, starting with your own behavior. And the behavior, in order to change behavior, you need to create a shift in emotions, and which can be learned. But there's over 200 emotions that it's hard to learn. It's like a complicated language. So where do you start? That is why I distilled the 7 most essential emotions and made them accessible through Aspire, my recent book, and also in my teaching and my coaching for leaders. If you learn these 7 essential emotions, they drive the associated behaviors, then you can create positive change in a very effective way.
You know what's interesting? As you're talking, I'm thinking about being emotional, and I'm thinking about what are the most, from my perspective, what I see in the workplace and dealing with corporations and all of that, and being on the inside of that. You tend to see, at least I tend to see, the most common emotions in business tend to be, I would classify them, you probably say it better than I am, like the harsher emotions, the more black and white emotions, like anger, power, or positive, like attaboy, get on with it. But there's so many emotions that we have. There's such a range of emotions, but do you see that as well? That those tend to be, and is that what you've seen has sort of made leaders less effective? Is that in business, those emotions tend to get stilted and limited by the drive to achieve whatever it might be.
Yeah, and most people, and this has to do with our education system, how we are brought up, have not learned to put a language to emotions, right? We try to have a workaround where we describe what does anger mean, which is an emotion. What is a positive, let's say, the emotion of joy? How do we put a language to it, and what do we describe, and what does it mean to a person? But the point is that in joy, we feel anger. It's more observable. We see in the behavior. That's why you're pointing those out, probably. But there's a lot of emotions that are not so easily visible. No, it's kind of like resentment, for example. Resentment is an emotion that is related to anger, but it's more quiet, more inside. Like a person is like a victim, feels like a victim of something. And the boss didn't give that person a promotion, or a client was not treated well served well, and has resentment, but doesn't express it necessarily. But internally, the thought process, the communication, like about the unfairness that happened to me, or the perceived unfairness, keeps the mental energy in the past. And the person, like, for example, it's not available for this person to create a vision of the future, to change the situation, because the person is caught in the past. So that's an example of an emotion that is very often not visible. And when I coach people, I try to pick up what is the emotional state you're actually in, what is the mood today you are in, because that tells me a story what is possible today for this person and what is not possible.
Interesting. Have you ever found a situation because it's almost psychology. Do you feel that way? Like what you're asking is you're trying to gauge the emotional status of the person.
Mm-hmm.
But then have you ever found sometimes where it was just too hard to get over? They were too stuck in the past. Was there always a way to power through that and to find a way?
Yeah, there's a literal distinction is between an emotion that is coming up and going, it's coming and going, and the mood. Person can be in a mood and it's a little bit more subdued, but it is more persistent. So if let's say somebody is in a negative mood or in a sour mood, we describe it that way, and we see it in the face of the person, but it's more ongoing. It can be actually for your listeners in the business, certain businesses or groups of people are in a certain mood. A society can be in a certain mood, in a more, like during the pandemic, there was a certain maybe negative mood where people were in, more fearful, maybe more resentful too, or some even more angry, maybe in the traffic we were seeing it and so on. So I'm saying, but those emotional states allow either the individual, or if this is a mood that holds can hold a whole organization hostage, basically.
Wow. Amazing. Emotions are so powerful. Well,
they are.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear about these essential emotions that people need to master. So we're going to talk about that coming up. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Take a step toward bringing our country and community together. Start a meaningful conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
If you enjoyed today's show, do this. Share us, like us, give us a review on your favorite podcast app. It means a lot to us, and it ensures more people tune in and raise the bar at workplaces everywhere.
Welcome back, everyone. We are talking with Reiner Lomb about the essential emotions leaders need to create positive change in the workplace. So let's talk about it. What are the critical, I think you said there's seven critical emotions. What are they? I want to hear about them.
And so again, this is distilled from over 200 emotions that we are in, and the researchers are still finding new emotions all the time. But let me explain them in blocks of three. So they're built like a pyramid. The foundation of that pyramid is like empathy, compassion, and interest. And empathy drives caring. So any leader must care, because if a leader doesn't care, the people that he is leading are not going to trust that leader.
Right.
Now, caring alone might not lead to action yet. So if, let's say, I care about you suffering, right, or the need you have, but I might care about it, I might not act on it. But the next thing is then compassion. Compassion adds the commitment. It includes empathy, it builds on empathy, but it adds the commitment to serve the needs of that person. Very critical for any business that serves clients, right, or the employees. Okay, so compassion adds that commitment to caring, acting on the caring to serve the needs. Now, a leader also needs to understand really deeper the issues that the stakeholders have and the needs they have, but also the systems and solutions. Needs really to understand the complexity of it. If you have somebody in the healthcare system who wants to transform the healthcare system, a leader in that space needs to understand deeply the healthcare system, how it works, right? That's an example. So interest is the emotion that drives the understanding. If a leader is not interested in it, he will have a very shallow understanding. Okay. So those three, empathy, compassion, and interest, build the foundation. Now, based on that understanding of the needs of the stakeholders and the solutions and so on, what is possible, now a leader can look forward and can create a vision, an aspiring vision for the future of the organization, of the society, of community, and so on. And that requires optimism. Now,
that's a tough one.
Without optimism, it's not possible. If somebody lives in an emotion of the past, such as resentment, the leader cannot look forward. He cannot be a visionary leader. Now, next, he needs to be able to inspire people, stakeholders, investors, for example, if you start a business, right? Yeah. If you want to hire people, you need to inspire them. You need to mobilize people to join your business and support your vision, right? So inspiration is the next one. And then if you have people inspired and they join your business and they give you money for it, you got to coordinate effective actions. You need to set goals and you need to have project plans and you need to execute. That requires coordinating actions. That requires collaboration, and collaboration needs trust. Trust in the leader, trust of the leader in the people that he's hiring, he's mobilizing, or she, but also facilitating and cultivating trust among the people. Without trust, collaboration is not possible. So these are the next three: optimism, inspiration, and trust. They drive visioning. They drive mobilizing people and coordinating effective actions. Now, as we have seen with the pandemic, you might have a plan as a business owner and you execute perfectly. Let's assume that for a moment. Something happens unexpected, some disruption like a pandemic or this Ukrainian war, horrible. But suddenly everything changes, right, in the environment and so on. It's disruptive. Now, in this moment, the leader must be resilient, but also the leader must cultivate resiliency and support resiliency in the people, in the stakeholders, in the employees, in everybody that he or she is working with. Now, resilience is driven by positive emotions. The opposite is true. If the leader and the organization goes into a negative spiral, the organization cannot be resilient, going to fail in that negative spiral. So research has shown that in practical experience as well. But positivity is not a single emotion. It's a palette of emotions. I just combined them, but this might be an emotion like joy, gratefulness, hopefulness, and many others, that I mentioned before, like interest, optimism, and so on, are also part of that palette of positive emotion. Now, a leader can cultivate these emotions. A leader can learn these emotions. They're all learnable. A leader can create a shift, can learn to be aware of like what emotional state am I in a specific leadership situation. Let's say I need to create an inspiring vision. But if the leader recognizes I'm a very pessimistic state right now, or even in a state of, let's say, resentment as an example, that's not a good state for me to be a visionary leader. So how can I create this shift? And so in the book itself, I describe how to recognize what emotion is helpful. What emotion are you in? And what would be a helpful emotion, like one of those 7 emotional states that I need to shift to, and the practices that I can learn in order to shift to that emotional state.
Let me ask you this. What do you find the most difficult of all of those things that you talked about, those emotional stages and how they, sort of correlate into one another? But what do you find the most difficult for leaders to manifest?
Yeah, it might be different a little bit from leader to leader, but a common one that I see as a challenge, and it is inherent to a leader. A leader needs to be visionary. Otherwise, you cannot call somebody a leader. But most struggle with being a visionary leader.
Interesting.
Especially being able to come up with a vision that inspires the stakeholders, that inspires the people the leader wants to mobilize and he wants to serve and so on. So the reason why I'm saying this is if I just this week I had a new client and I interviewed the leadership team and I asked, and everybody said, oh, we are aligned on the vision. But when I interviewed every single person, they had a different understanding of the vision. It showed me that, this was somehow a hidden vision, but they didn't really have a vision. It's
interesting because so many things are going through my mind. So is that because the vision has always been some statement on a wall that they, or in the handbook or in the, in the documents for the company that we use to, get clients or whatever? Or is it because the individual's motivation is not really the vision, it's the benefit that they're getting out of it, the money, the recognition, the money, the salary, whatever it might be, that the vision is stilted by their own needs, not being able to see beyond that.
Yeah, and the vision can have multiple layers, right? That could be like my vision is to pay for let's say, college of my daughter or my son. That is part of a vision. But when I talk about vision, I mean something very long term, like something that is out there and that's very inspiring. It's a purpose-driven vision. It's aligned with the higher purpose of a person. It's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It goes even beyond that. It's something bigger than myself, but it drives my behavior. Let's say I have a vision of the society, let's say in 20, 30 years, that we have a flourishing society for my children, but for all children and my grandchildren and so on. So I can paint the picture of that, how I would like them to flourish in that environment. And that drives my current behavior. That drives my work. This is why I do the work that I'm doing. And I have that vision. But I need to also, as a leader, be able to clearly paint that picture, be able to communicate it to others. And only the ones who feel aligned with that vision will want to work with me on the long term to make this vision a reality. The others might just work for me because they need to make a living or for other reason. But if you want to really fire up people, emotionally engage them, you have to have an inspiring vision. And that you do by aligning your vision with the higher aspirations of the people that you want to mobilize.
Interesting. I love how it all ties in together and works on the other. So strength upon strength upon strength. I love it. Well, we're running out of time, but I want to know, sort of as we wrap up, can you share with us sort of your most inspiring story of a leader who really took your concepts to heart and affected positive change?
Yeah, I have many inspiring stories, but I just picked one arbitrarily that is relatable. No, this is so this is an senior executive of a large organization who called me looking for a coach. And he was in a situation where his boss, the CEO of that organization, was constantly complaining that he was not leading. And he worked his butt off, basically, in quote. And he was like saying, I work so hard, I work extra hours, I work on the weekend, I even perform well with my team, but it's still not good enough. And so he didn't see something. He didn't see that what his boss or his manager saw, basically that he was not really leading. He was putting out fires. He was like jumping in and fixing things all the time with his team and so on. as I went into the conversations, I discovered, and together with him, that he lived in resentment. He was feeling resentment towards his boss. And I mentioned resentment as one example of an emotion that doesn't allow you to look forward. It doesn't allow you to be a visionary leader because you are caught in the past of what happened to you. Now, through that coaching process, I helped him to become aware of it. And I helped him in that coaching process to shift out of resentment, to overcome it through accepting things. And as something that happened in the past, he cannot change anymore. He accepted that. He didn't like that these things happened, but he accepted they're in the past. I cannot change it. And suddenly he was able to think about the future and he became a visionary leader. Now there was more to it, but I'm just saying that was a shift, a powerful shift. At that time, he was managing maybe 20 people. Now today he's managing, he moved on like to other organization. He's leading a very large organization with thousands of people. He's a very inspirational leader. I mean, I know his leadership team and people, and they just love working for him.
That's great. I love it. What a wonderful way to help someone, because can you only imagine not only helped him in business, but probably helped him in other facets of his life as well.
He said that. He said my all aspects, all dimensions of my life changed. The relationship to my children, to my wife, spouse, friends, community, because learning these skills, they are so fundamental to our relationships that when you learn those, you are able to change. You are able to transform all of your relationships.
Very powerful. Well, thank you so much. That's our show for today. Thank you, Reiner, for joining us and sharing your thoughts and your experience with our listeners. We very much appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
You can learn more about Reiner by visiting his website at www.reinerlomb.com. That's ReinerLomb.com. You can also connect with Reiner via our website at Workplace Perspective. I want to also thank our listeners, My Radio Angels, James and the Knave at Night, and Workplace Perspectives team extraordinaire, our engineer and producer, Paul Roberts, our associate producer, Melissa DeLacy, with music provided by the very talented Stephen Versaloni. Thank y'all for joining us on Workplace Perspective, and until next time, keep raising the bar.